Hello and welcome to the Sacred Priestess podcast. I'm Hayley and thank you for being here, where I help beautiful awakening women activate their sacred feminine power so that they can find clarity, connection and confidence in their spiritual healing journey. It is so great to have you here this week. We are talking today about self-love, identity and finding yourself again. This is sort of like a bit of a personal share about my midlife healing journey that has come about over the last few weeks. Because I've been completely out of it. I had a lot of stuff coming up. I had a lot of things changing in my life, a lot of things that I've coming to terms with. It was my 48th birthday in the beginning of July. Reflections brought up some stuff, as it does. Ended up in a bit of a dark night of the soul, bit of shadow, like complete and utter shadow, deep pit energy, which resulted in me completely throwing my back out. And I've been out literally for the last week. Haven't been able to do a lot of work stuff and show up a lot because, I've basically been lying on the floor on my back with a heat bag on my back. Couldn't do anything or go anywhere. So that's been really fun and exciting and not. It just sort of was one of those things where, when things are going on for me, I process by walking in the forest. I love getting out into the forest. I love exercising. I love moving. I mean, I couldn't even meditate because my back was that sore that I just couldn't kind of switch off in my mind. And I know that some of you have probably been there or are there in terms of when your energetic and emotional state hits your physical body, whether that be through stuff that's going on with your back, whether you get really bad headaches, stomach problems, things going on in your joints. It is really hard to be in that space. And like I said, it's really hard when I process this stuff by walking in the forest or exercising or meditating. I sort of didn't have anywhere to go. And it really made me realize that I wasn't actually really processing or getting down to the root of what was going on for me. I was sort of processing the changes that were going on in my life. I was feeling into and processing different emotions that were coming up around that. But obviously, there was a deeper level of processing that I really needed to get into, which was really more about how I felt about myself. And last year I did a lot of healing around self-love. For those of you, if you can cast your mind back and remember, I'm a Cancerian. I think there were 2 eclipses in Cancer last year within weeks of each other. And it was a lot for me and a lot of healing around self-love and the way I feel about myself. Self-forgiveness came up, and obviously, it was a big surprise when it came up again last week or the week before. So, because again, we do things and we're like, oh yeah, I've done that. I don't need to do that anymore. I don't need to think about that. I've done all of that. And obviously there was this much deeper level that was being called forward, being brought forward to, and what was needed. And I was, like I said, I was looking at all the things that were changing in my life and processing the emotions, the identities, the things that were coming up for me. But the real thing that needed noticing, the attention that needed to be, or the thing that really needed attention, was looking at the way I value myself, looking at my self-worth, disappointment in myself, the pressure I put on myself, how I speak to myself when things kind of aren't going as planned. So, a lot of that came up to the top. And because I couldn't move anywhere, because I couldn't do anything, the biggest thing that sort of really came up was radical honesty and having to be really honest with where I'm at, honest with how I'm feeling about myself, more importantly, honest about the fears, because I think fears are really good at coming up as different things. And I think that's why sometimes we think we've processed it all, but we haven't really gotten into the fear that's underneath and allowed ourselves to really feel the fear of, whatever it is that's happening for us. And, in the mystery school, Aphrodite brings through this for us. She brings through radical honesty. She brings through that shadow work for us and allows us to sit in that and notice that. And, I couldn't escape with, positive affirmation. And I think sometimes we try to escape with positive affirmation of like trying to find the lesson and like trying to deflect from the fears by going, oh, inner child, or let's just put on some sound bowls, or, oh, this thing happened when I was, I don't know, whatever, rather than actually just really feeling the feelings and the fear. And I know that you guys know this. I know that, most of you guys who are here are well versed in all of this stuff, but, it just goes to show that no matter how far you are on your journey, I mean, I've been in the spiritual space for well over 25 years now. And, been working in this space, been working with people in this space, and there are still those deeper levels. There are still those things that like were so ingrained and so deep within us and so embedded within our energy that we don't still realize that they're there, right? So, and maybe some of you have come up against this, but yeah, so like I said, this week's just really forced me to sit with and acknowledge and see the absolute truth, really see the fears that are coming up and how that those fears are actually showing up, how they're affecting me, how they're affecting the way that I'm talking about myself, how they're affecting my worth and all of those things. So yeah, I had to lie with that version of me, lie with the parts of me that like I couldn't abandon myself. I couldn't distract myself. I couldn't turn it into something else. And even though I don't always do, and I know that you guys don't do it either, we don't do those things on purpose. It's just that we're either not ready to, or we've been taught that, we need to look here, we need to look there when things come up, rather than actually just really sitting and feeling into it. So I had to sit with the parts of myself that I don't like at the moment. I had to sit with the parts of myself that feel really disappointed in myself. I had to sit with the feelings of betrayal that I hold within myself towards myself when I've let myself down, or I've let people get in my head, or all of those kind of things, and sit with that shame. And, self-love is really about feeling and honoring and witnessing and loving on yourself in this space. When you think about if a friend was coming to you talking about how disappointed they are in themselves, how they feel like they've betrayed themselves, that they've stepped out of integrity, that they've done all these things, you're going to love on them and tell them that it's okay, that we all make mistakes, that we all have this, that we all, and we need to be doing that with ourselves. And that's what I had to sit and do, which was beautiful. Like it was hard. And some of the things that I really had to look at and actually feel were horrible, because I'm like, oh my God, how can I feel about myself in that way? Like I didn't realize that I felt like, I like to think that I have plenty of self-love, right? Like, yeah, feel like I stand in integrity, that I try not to put myself in situations like where I am sort of abandoning myself in those ways or whatever. But yeah, it was really hard to sit in that. And so yeah, not so long ago, I did an episode on feminine cycles and the feminine journey from maiden to mother to queen to crone. And this last birthday, like I said, it was the beginning of July, I turned 48, and I'm really stepping into that queen energy and really into that part of life where you're starting to, as a mother, and for those of you out there who are mothers, but even if you're not, you've still been in that energy of giving and nurturing others. And so being in that energy and sort of beginning to step into more independence and finding more sovereignty, and starting to actually think about yourself a little bit more, that because that energy is really changing from nurturing others to nurturing self and standing in your own power a little bit, not standing in your own power a little bit more, but I think we do all kind of lose that a little bit. And I think a lot of the women that I work with, this is where they're at. Like they just don't feel like they have that power. That's why we're here, to get that sacred feminine power back, because everything comes to like what the kids need, what the kids want, what our parents want, what our partner needs, what we're doing and giving at work, all of that stuff. So, traditionally these cycles, and I mean, talking about more of a menopausal, that menopausal stage today, this was really honored back in the day. These cycles of womanhood, these journeys through womanhood were really honored. And it was a time where you stepped deeper into wisdom. It wasn't a time of decline where it's like, oh, I'm getting really old. Like, what does my future retirement look like? Like, it's all downhill from here. And you hear people say that, oh, 10, 50, menopause is here. It's all downhill from here. Like, this is like sort of the ingrained that we don't notice and we don't realize a lot of the time is so deep within the way that we react and feel and show up in this stage. And so, this is really a stage of stepping into more wisdom. It's not honoring anymore. And I realized how much I was still plugged into the matrix with this, still plugged into the belief that my best years are behind me, and that it's all downhill from here. And rather than looking at it as an opportunity for me to actually just step into greater wisdom now and go, wow, like I'm actually getting a lot of my freedom back. I'm getting a lot of my personal power back. I'm getting a lot of sovereignty back, stepping into that expansion and that possibility. Like the beautiful, again, in the mystery school, the beautiful sisters of the Pleiades bring through these cosmic energies of expansion and possibility, and what can I do from here, what is my next step, and looking at that in light and excitement and joy, rather than, oh, it's all downhill from here, it's nearly retirement time, whatever. So the other thing that happened that brought this up, while I was flat on my back, I binged season 2 of The Four Seasons on Netflix. If you guys haven't watched it yet, you got to watch it. Best show ever. One of the best shows ever. And there's a beautiful character in this show called Anne. And she's been divorced. Well, they were getting divorced when I don't want to like spoiler alert, but in the first season, her husband passed away, but they were sort of in the middle of divorcing. And so she was already in a weird space. And, she in this is kind of stepping more into that, because she in her 50s, and she's kind of stepping into this space now as well. And, she said, she was having a phone conversation with somebody, and she was like, in my 20s, I knew who I was. In my 20s, I was just so excited and just loving on everything and experimenting and trying all these different things and just really in my element. And then in my 30s, I was a mum to a young kid. Like I knew what my role was. I knew what my identity was. And she's like, now I just feel like I'm floundering. I'm lost. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. I don't know where I'm headed. And I was like, oh my God, I burst into tears, because I was like, that is exactly what I feel like. In my 20s, I knew exactly who I was and what I wanted and where I was going and what I was doing. It was all flowing. It was all, amazing. And in my 30s, I was a mum to toddlers. I knew that that's what I was doing. And now as my kids, my eldest, his birthday is 10 days before mine, and he's just turned 18. My youngest son turns 17 really soon, like my middle child. He's 17 really soon. My daughter's still 12, but I mean, she's a daughter. She's the youngest. She's literally 12 going on 22. Like I could leave her at home for 6 weeks and she'd be fine. Like, they're not like in those toddler stages where they really need me, like they've got so much more independence. And so it's like this whole thing coming up of like, okay, well, where do I stand now? And I'm only sharing this because I know that there's a lot of people in my community, and there's a lot of women out there who've either been through this or are going through this or are probably just about to go through this. So, but yeah, I was fearing a lot of stuff going into this stage, like I said, which I didn't realize, instead of looking at it as a new chance of expansion and possibility, is basically my point. So, I needed to let go of that fear of the future, let go of the fear of what I was stepping into and like, what is my life now? And honoring the wisdom that I have, honoring my sacred feminine, honoring my personal power, honoring my connection to my soul, to Christ Sophia, these beautiful goddesses that I get to work with. And yeah, just really being excited about stepping into this next stage of my life. And I don't have, as many of you may not, and if you do relate to this, and if this is something you're going through right now, let me know in the comments. We are all here doing this together, because like me, you might not have a 10-step plan of what's next. You might not have it all figured out, but this week has left me with a beautiful, deeper insight, and has really got me noticing on a deeper level how I speak to myself, and being aware of how I speak to myself, how I judge myself, how quickly I make something about my worth and value in this world. And it's made it more exciting stepping forward of what I get to create now, with a little bit more, I suppose, independence. I don't know whether that's the right word. So yeah, it's been beautiful. And, just remind myself to connect with the beautiful Christ Sophia and my beautiful divine feminine wisdom, my gorgeous higher self and soul, with the goddesses that I get to work with just constantly, and remind myself that I am a divine being of the cosmos who has endless possibility, and I'm in a time of absolute beautiful expansion right now and stepping into something beautiful. So yeah, it's been all about self-love, but also it has been about permission. It has been about giving myself permission to flounder about for a bit if that's what I have to do, and that's not a bad thing. We floundered about in our teens and 20s, and it was so much fun. Well, I did anyway. It was so much fun just figuring stuff out and doing cool jobs. And, I was lucky enough to travel a lot overseas, and with the work that I was doing as a dancer, and, it was great floundering, and find that fun in floundering. So I'm giving myself permission to flounder, and please give yourself permission to flounder if you're in a transitional stage. Giving permission to not know who you are as your kids get older and as they start changing, because you might be in a position where maybe you've had toddlers and now all of your kids are at school this year, or maybe they're all about to go to be at school next year, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, where does that leave me? Because that's a huge transition too, that stage when your kids are, they're all at school, and you're like, holy Moses, like, they don't need me as much anymore. And, so yeah, give yourself permission to, not know what's next in terms of that. Give yourself permission to grieve the old versions of yourself. Give yourself permission to stop measuring your worth by your achievements, your accomplishments, and how other people on the outside see those, because that's what it really comes down to a lot of the time, the judgment on how society sees worth and value with accomplishment and achievement, and how you measure success and how other people measure success. And give yourself permission to start a new chapter with wide-eyed optimism and an excitement, but knowing that you at this stage now have a deeper wisdom, that you have a deeper connection to who you are, that you have more of an idea of who you really are at the core. And especially if you have been stepping into this work with your divine feminine wisdom and your sacred wisdom. So yeah, it's not about knowing exactly, who you are and what you're doing, but just to have fun while you're figuring it out, and, to keep that. Let's not all grow up too fast. So yeah, thank you so much for being here today, and for allowing me to share this weird and random story that has been going on in my life. But I just think it's something that we can all relate to, and it's something, these transitions of these cycles, the healing that we're doing through this awakening, I think is all something that we can relate to. like I said, feel free to drop something in the comments, or you can DM me. I will leave my Instagram handle below. I will also leave the link to my private Facebook group. And if you want to go deeper into this work, you want to talk more in depth about this kind of work, about healing, about what comes up for us all during this crazy time that we're living in, if you would love to connect more and move deeper into mystery school teachings, to opening up your intuition, psychic gifts and abilities, to work with the goddesses. You know, we work in the mystery school with, like I said, Aphrodite, Chrysophia, the seven sisters of the Pleiades, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, Athena. Who am I missing? Oh my goodness, I'm missing someone and I feel really bad. And Isis, of course. Yes. So yeah, if you'd like to work close with those guys, I will leave a link to my VIP waitlist for the Inner Circle, where we gather every month with these beautiful goddesses. We do women's circles where we get to do reflection, get healings and activations from these goddesses. Also, obviously, learning more mystery school teachings, opening up that intuition, connecting to your divine wisdom, opening up that sacred feminine power, all of the things. So I'll leave all of that below. But thank you again so much for being here. Have an amazing week, and I will talk to you all again soon. Bye.